Naomi, thank you for taking the time to be on the Leading Life podcast. We definitely connected over Facebook, right? I found your story intriguing, interesting, and I love what you're doing. And so in Leading Life podcast, normalcy, let's start off right away by giving the viewers something that they can take from you immediately. All right. So,
Absolutely.
Naomi, what is the one thing that you drive for others to learn the most?
I would say if you learn nothing else from me, the one thing I want you to learn and remember is the importance of sleep. Because I'm a stress management coach. This is the thing that everything else hinges on in your life. It affects your health physically, affects your health mentally, it affects your immunity, it affects your mood, it affects your ability to gain or lose weight. So, the importance of sleep, the importance of getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Studies have been done that show the most successful people in the world. You think of anyone at the top of their game.
Yeah.
The majority of those people are getting 8 hours of sleep a night. And you can't tell me that someone like Tiger Woods, Jeff Bezos, people like that they have any less to do than I do.
Yeah.
They're getting that amount of sleep. And so my number one tip for that is if you're only getting like 4 hours of sleep, it's going to be really hard to jump straight to 7. So don't do that to yourself. Instead, look at what time you went to bed last night. And let's say it was 11 o'clock. Tonight, go to bed at 10:58, 2 minutes earlier. That's it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Do that. That's achievable. And so do that for a week. And then the next week, go to bed 2 minutes earlier than that at 10:56. And as you progressively do that, which is so achievable, 2 minutes is really easy. Yeah. Over time, you're going to gain half an hour, an hour and a half of sleep in small attainable chunks.
Wow, when you say sleep, right? Because I've been in those. Guess you can go to the hustle, right? The sign behind me, the hustle mentality, right? And I think there's times in your life where you got to hustle it out. Maybe you're getting a little bit of sleep here and there and stuff like that. But I went through a phase in my life where I was like, man, I was getting like 5 hours maybe. Mm-hmm. And I felt it. Like it can be very, very draining. And I found that towards the afternoon, even like with I'm an early riser. I'm just a natural morning person, right? My wife hates it, but I'm a morning person, and I find that like towards the afternoon, I'm done. Like mentally, I am done. Mm-hmm. Like I can't do no more. And I found during those times where I was only averaging like 5-6 hours of sleep sometimes, like it was even earlier that I was done.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that makes so much sense. And it kind of reminds me of my mom, because my mom is that person. I think like her internal clock is already there. Mm-hmm. Like she just naturally like 6 in the morning, she's already awake.
Yep.
She's already like up, and like I don't know how, like she wakes up and it's just natural to her. She's up, she's already in a good mood, like, hey, good morning, everybody. And I'm just like, dude, like we just got up, like hold on.
Right. My mom's the same way.
Yeah, but is that something that, do you think, like, is that something that actually happens, like your internal clock? Is that why you're saying like the 2-minute progressions?
Yeah, it allows your body to gradually adjust because you've gotten used to going to bed at a certain time. So it allows your body and your internal clock to adjust. And then you find yourself waking up more rested, more ready to go, rather than the grogginess. And another piece of that is hitting the snooze button. That puts you into a new sleep cycle, and you don't get to finish that cycle. So that's why you wake up so groggy, and it takes you hours to come out of that because you've messed up your sleep cycle. So you're much better just setting your alarm for a later time. If you know you're not going to get up when your alarm goes off, just set it later and get up when your alarm goes off, and you'll wake up better and you won't be stuck in that morning fog.
That makes sense. So I shouldn't be setting like 4 or 5 alarms in the morning.
No.
Oh, trust. Yeah, trust. No, my wife hates that. It's it's all my music going on over and over, and I'm like, hold on. Okay, let me snooze it. Let me get another 5 minutes. But it makes so much sense because I've done that where the first time I woke up, I was more energized than the second time I woke up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my thing for that, which I have to do for myself, if my alarm is right next to my bed, I don't know how I do it, but I can turn it off without ever waking up and I don't realize it and I sleep way later. So I keep my
Hmm.
alarm. I have a real alarm in my bedroom and I keep it on the opposite side of my bedroom so that I have to get out of bed to turn it off. Otherwise, I somehow
Yeah.
turn it off, not realizing it, and sleep for another hour or so.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I started doing that. So I used to put like I just use my phone, but I
Mhm,
used to put my phone like right next to my nightstand and stuff like that. And I saw somebody had shared that they're like, if you want to force yourself to get up, put it away from you.
mhm.
And I was just like, that's interesting. So I put it away to the point where you said, like, I have to physically get up, get off the bed to go turn the alarm off. It's just sometimes that turnaround defeats me. And I look back at the bed and I'm like, oh no. So
Yeah, you're already out of bed, so why go back?
why, yeah, make it a point to just stay off your feet. Yeah. Well, I'm sure the best of us have experienced that.
Yes.
So, but it's interesting. So I'm sure you have a reason why you say sleep
Mhm.
is vital, right? So let us hear your story and how that became the number one thing you drive for people to learn.
Yeah. So I am an educator by training and background and calling. I spent
Okay.
18 years as a teacher, administrator, public and private schools, and it's a super stressful job,
Oh,
especially when you feel called to it and you are just throwing yourself into it. And so I burned out a couple of times in my career. The first time, I probably wouldn't have called it burnout at that time because I just didn't know what it was. Um,
okay.
but I was laid off because budget cuts and everything. I was already 9 years in at that one school, and I had gone in full force. I was teaching, I was coaching, I was involved in committees and everything. So I was really like all in, working long, long days, bringing work home with me. I really had no work life balance.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when I lost my job, I lost who I was. I had so closely tied my identity to my career that without being in a hallway full of teenagers, which I know terrifies
Yeah.
some people, I was kind of lost. And it was a really dark stretch of time for me, trying to find a job, trying to figure out who I was without teaching. And I really had to tie my identity, and everybody has to do this if you're
Yeah.
going to be successful, is you have to tie your identity to something that is unchanging. Your career changes. Even if you tie your identity to motherhood or fatherhood, your kids grow up and that relationship changes. So it has to be in something unchanging. And for me, that's in my faith as a child of God. Who God says I am never changes. And that's where my identity should have been to begin with. But that's where it stays to keep me solid there. And I had a year outside of education because I couldn't get another teaching job at the time. I went into pharmacy as a pharmacy tech,
Okay.
which was interesting because I already had 2 degrees and all you need is your high school diploma to be a pharmacy tech and they'll train you.
Wow.
Mhm. Yeah. So I
Nice.
kind
Okay.
of dabbled with the idea of becoming a pharmacist, and I was like, "Oh, heavens no. Mm-mm. Like, I'm not sitting in
Yeah.
front of a computer 8 hours a day checking medications, like, that's no."
Yeah.
So, I went back into education as an assistant principal. I started my doctorate and really got into a toxic situation, um,
Okay.
and realized it within a month. Within a month, I knew what was going on, and I was like, "This is not good." Loved what I was doing, loved the job, but the situation just was not healthy. And so, as soon as the school year ended, and I did try to address the situation, I brought it to HR, I brought it to the headmaster, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't something that could be resolved. So I did choose to leave that job, um, and went back to teaching in another school. And that really was like a very healing place for me, going back into the classroom. The people that I was with, my assistant principal knew my background, knew I had been an assistant principal. So he really respected my knowledge and my background and my leadership. Um,
Yeah.
so it was just a good place for me to be settle, find my feet again, and then start growing again. Kept going on my doctorate, got my doctorate, became the department head, was growing in leadership, and really wanted to get into an assistant principal position again. And it just wasn't working out. I
Mhm.
was able to fill interim positions in the district, but every time I applied for a full position, I didn't get it. So I started looking outside the district, and really the situation turned toxic at that point. I was in some different situations and it just
Okay.
wasn't healthy. I again was like crying at work, all of
Oh,
this.
wow.
Yeah, like lies were being told
Yeah,
about.
that's bad.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the days I held so many different interim positions while holding my regular position that I think it was 5 positions in 3 weeks that I filled. Like I walked into school one day and people were like, "So, what hat are you wearing today?" I was like, "Shut up and leave me alone." Like,
Wow. Yeah. No, that can be stressful just on its own. Like just not knowing. I worked in I worked in several like distribution operations environments and stuff. And one thing that was a constant is just a changing environment,
Mhm,
right? And from me coming from the military side where it can be very black and white,
mhm.
and then you're coming to an area where they're telling you, hey, we operate in the gray.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a very like mind shift for me. Like I had to really get used to that. And I mean, I was there working with other prior military people that were having just a very hard time dealing with it because it was very stressful. Luckily for me, I had a part-time job that I was working at while I was going to school. So
Mhm,
I didn't go directly straight from military to that kind of operation. I went through a part-time kind of phase where I was like, and it was still hard for me seeing seeing the people working there doing certain things where I'm like, no, this could be done better, or this is the way
mhm.
you should do it, or so I had to really wrap my mind around like, okay, it's not just your way, John. It's not the army way. This is how we're adjusting everything here and stuff. And so I had to really wrap my mind around that. And I wanted to hit on something that you said before about like understanding yourself and knowing yourself, because
Mhm.
that's one piece that, and what I do, it's like leadership development. And I focus a lot on like cognitive behaviors on people, on mindfulness, right? As a leader. What drove me to that was seeing being in those types of environments. I continue to go through like leadership development courses
Mhm.
for the company, right? And then I didn't feel like I was changing though.
Mm.
I didn't feel like a leader, like I was growing. I felt like some of those courses that I was going through were like repeated from
Mm.
even other companies because they were going over communication styles and how to communicate to your team, how to communicate to your supervisor and manager and stuff like that. And so after a while, it just kind of dawned on me that I was like, well, they're not really teaching me how to be a leader. They're teaching me how to be a leader in their environment.
Mhm.
They're
Abs
teaching me how to run their company.
Yep.
Right. So what am I doing? Right. And that's where, and my development program kind of stemmed off really when I first started it. I started identifying my strengths in like 2006 when I first joined the military.
Mhm.
And that evolved over the years into the program I do now. But one thing that I harp on so much on people, especially when they contact me for a different perspective or for inquiring about my program and stuff like that, I ask them, I'm like, what are your values, man?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
it's sad to say that you would be shocked at how many people don't really have their values in
Yeah.
place right now.
Yeah.
That they're like, I'm like, what's driving you? Like, what wakes you up? Oh, I gotta pay bills. I'm like, no, like, what wakes you up in life, man? Like, what are your values that are driving you forward, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, if you can't tell me that, then I can't help you get to that next step,
Yep.
right? I need you to figure that out. Yeah. So it was. I think it was very like that was a big key that you had mentioned before. I just kind of wanted to
Yeah.
make sure we hit on that because I was like, if you're not understanding that, especially as a leader, and
Mhm.
my definition of leader is honestly anybody who provides purpose and direction to anybody,
It's
right?
influence.
Yeah, it's just the influence, and that can be a person that's not employed, a mother at home providing influence to her children is a leader,
Mhm. Absolutely.
right? And I feel like, and my life goal is to challenge the very definition of leadership development
Mhm.
because I was like, I feel companies and corporations and stuff have put so much emphasis on professional leadership development or your hard skills that people forget the soft skills, the personal development aspect of it. And
Mhm.
I'm like, you can learn all you want about how to run your job and stuff like that. Like all those hard skills you can learn by taking courses and stuff like that, but you still need to keep working on this leader, the inner leader, right? To keep going forward. So yeah, I wanted to hit on that because I think that's very big. Is like understanding who you are and those values that drive you.
For sure. Yeah, that's super important.
Yeah, definitely. And and so in your situation that you were having, right? What kind of led you to, I guess, those toxic environments or toxic situations that you were going through?
Some of it was just the positions I got put in and the people I was with. And as I look at it now, I can see that it was what those people were struggling with. And it was just coming out onto me, like their responses to me, their reactions to me. It was things that they were struggling with.
Yes.
And I just happened to be the lightning rod for it kind of thing. But that caused me to choose other employment. And so I ended up getting a position as a curriculum coordinator, which wasn't originally what I was looking for, but that was what was open, and that's what I got. And I actually loved it. I loved. I was in district leadership. I was a curriculum coordinator, and it was fantastic. I was working with the teachers, which is really what I wanted. I wanted to work with the adults. I'm a fantastic teacher, but I wanted to work with teachers. Love kids, love teaching, but it was time to train the trainers kind of at this point.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I made that shift, and it was like beginning of the school year. We'd already started in one school. They hired me in this other one. And so I had to finish out like a month of my contract. So October, I go to the new district, start as a curriculum coordinator. I'm there about 6 months. April, I go in for my annual review evaluation. And there was a lot of changeover happening in the district at that point. Just like superintendent was going to another district. Several principals were going, or assistant principals were going into principal positions in other districts. So a lot of change happening in the leadership. I walk in, I sit down, and the interim superintendent goes, "These conversations are always hard to have. So I'm just going to say it. We're not renewing you." And I was like, pardon? Like totally out of the blue, no warning, nothing. Like there had been no conflicts. I hadn't been written up for anything. I hadn't been, punished for anything. And so it was just such a weird meeting, and they had already shifted my meeting. So it was later in the day than it was originally supposed to be. And they're like, "Well, we know this is a challenge, so you can go ahead and go home if you want for the rest of the day." And I was like, I'm a professional. I have things to get done.
Yeah.
Went into my office, closed the door, had a good cry, opened my door. Secretary walks in, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, like what happened?" She's like, "Well, you don't have to tell me." I was like, "Well, you're gonna find out eventually." I'm like, "I was let go. Like I was non-renewed." She's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "They said I'm not a good fit for the team." And she was like, "What?" The whole team had no clue. And they were like, "What do they mean you're not a good fit?" And like, it was politics and money is what it was.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I really don't need to fight this at that point. I don't need to stay on where that's what's going on. I don't need to fight that. I don't need to be here. So I started looking for other jobs and like wasn't getting anything. I was applying all over the place. And a friend called me and was like, "Listen, if you start your business, we'll support you." And I was like, well, shoot, now I got to take this seriously. Cause she knew I had been kind of toying with the idea of starting a business. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm like, there's a lot of things I can do. I'm like, I've got 3 degrees, like I'm highly qualified, but like, what do I do? And as I sat there, I was like, I'm a recovering educator. Like I am recovering from the stress, the politics. This was the politics, unfortunately. And I've had to do it multiple times, and I've had to do it all on my own. Like I had to figure out how to come back from burnout. I had to figure out how to balance my life while I'm working full time, earning my doctorate, dealing with a chronic illness. I had a period of time where I was working full time, writing my dissertation, taking a full load of classes for my doctorate. And I was really, really sick. I had a chronic illness. Plus I needed to have 3 different surgeries.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
A lot.
I feel like I did nothing.
I don't recommend doing all that.
Yes, that's a lot.
Yeah. So like I had to figure out how to find this balance, how to have a work-life balance, how to come back from burnout. You can heal, but it takes time and it takes tools. And I didn't have anybody to support me in that. I had to figure it out on my own. I had to find the people. So I wanted to be the person to provide those tools, to provide that support, that coaching, that mentoring. And that's how I started my business, because I wanted to give back. I wanted to provide what teachers don't get. And I find it's not just teachers, it's multiple professions. Education is super stressful. The medical field, super stressful. Higher education, law, real estate, like you name it, there's stress. Being a stay-at-home parent is stressful. So I really work with, it tends to be the high achieving driven professional that like works themselves into burnout. And so that's really who I work with, to help them find that balance again. And it's not always balance. It's kind of a juggling act at times. And I remember listening to this podcast and they're like, we don't need to live a balanced life. You go, it's never going to be perfectly balanced. But what you want is a blended life, kind of like a smoothie. It all gets blended together, but there are different amounts of the different things. And sometimes you put a little more strawberry in your smoothie, and other times you put a little more whatever fruit you want to put in your smoothie. Banana. I hate strawberry as a
blueberries.
Blueberries. There we go. I'll go for blueberries.
Blueberries is good.
You shift the balance at different times, and your life is like that. You have to shift it at times. There are times when, like we were talking about sleep, if you're a parent of young children, getting a lot of sleep is going to be really hard. You can prioritize sleep, but getting uninterrupted 7 hours of sleep, probably not going to happen. But prioritizing your sleep and getting to bed at a decent time, that you can do. And so the balance comes in figuring out, okay, sometimes I have to set certain things down. Other times I can pick them up. Sometimes my plate is really small and I can only handle so many things. When I was battling chronic illness, I couldn't take on a lot of things. Like my plate just got emptied for me and I just had to do what was required of me. At other times I can take on a whole lot more because my capacity is greater. And I think part of what we struggle with is we look at other people and we see them doing all these things. But what you don't realize is we don't all have the same capacity. My capacity is different than your capacity. And our capacities can shift throughout our lives, where, like I said, dealing with chronic illness, your capacity goes way down and you're only doing what's required for survival. At other times, your capacity is much higher because you're healthy, you're energetic. My capacity now versus when I was dealing with illness is very, very different. I can do a lot more. I have a lot more energy. I've found the tools that I need to keep myself balanced and grounded. And I'm much more in tune with when things get out of balance. And I'm like, oh, time to rein it back in. I catch it much sooner before it gets to the point of extreme stress, extreme burnout.
Yes. No, and I love that you're bringing this up because it goes into the mindfulness that I teach. My program it's called the Soaring Leader. I go over like people's strengths, opportunities, attitude, resilience, intent, necessity, and gratitude. Right. But overall, it's a state of awareness, right? One of my favorite words in the English language is pivot, right? I tell people, you better adapt. You better learn how to adapt to change because it's going to happen. Everything's going to change. Like, look at your life 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? I remember, and I always joke like with my family and stuff like that, or when I'm talking to my daughter or something like that, or my son, and I'm like, man, I remember back in the day when I thought that breakup was going to kill me. Like, I didn't think I was going to survive that breakup with so-and-so, right? I thought that was it. And I'm like, but I'm here now, or I thought after I got fired from that job, that was it.
Yeah.
But I'm here, and I'm like, and that there's a thing that I stress so much is a part of my program is picking your season. And how I categorize a season in my program is every 90 days. So over a 90-day period, it's almost like you're putting on a mentality, right? Am I going into an opportunity season where I love opportunity seasons? I'm actually in one right now. And I practice what I preach. I do the program myself, you know. So,
Mhm.
and opportunity season is just simply I look at the goal that I want to hit by the end of the year, and I look at my vision for a 5 year. I do a 5 year vision,
Mhm.
right? And with that, I look at it like, okay, if I want to that vision, that 5 year vision coming back, okay, then I got to hit this 1 year goal, right? And I have a framework on how you can plan it. But then you get your 1 year goal, and based off that 1 year goal, you're deciding, okay, in these next 90 days, what kind of mentality do I need, right?
Mhm.
Because think about it from what you said that you were just going through. You're doing all these courses, classes, dealing with health issues and medical stuff and everything. And to me, in my program, that's a resilient mindset. That
Mhm.
you just have to have a resiliency mindset at that point in time. Like things just got to get done,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I've done it. I've done it, and I've shared it on I think it was on one of my YouTube videos that I shared it. I was like, I went when I was first building my business and trying to come up with because my program was actually just my personal program. So I had to figure out how do I write the book, how do I get this out into a program, and I had to go through all the steps. So I went through 2 back-to-back resiliency seasons that lasted 6 months.
Mhm.
I was burnt out, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because how you say about capacity. My wife commented to me one day. She's like, "I don't understand how you can sit there and like type for like 6 hours straight." Like writing this book. She's like, I have no like she's like, I couldn't even like think of how you do that. I'm like, that's just your capacity. I'm like, you sit there and she's a pastry chef. I'm like, you
Mm.
sit there decorating a cake for like 8 hours. So
Right.
I'm like, me, I don't have that attention to detail, you know, like
Yep.
that little, I mean, she does crazy cakes and stuff, but this is why I harp so much on people on really focusing in on your mindset
Mhm.
on where you're trying to go because I just shared this recently too. Like your success is not my success.
Mhm. Yeah,
You got to define that for yourself,
absolutely.
you know, and that's where it all comes back together where you're tying in with your values. You're tying in, hey, what do I want out of life? What is my purpose in life? What am I passionate about and ambitious about? Okay, now how am I going to get there, right? And just like you spoke, you said that you work a lot with like high achieving, really driven individuals. For my clients, they have been like the ones that are having a hard time balancing their work and home life,
Mhm. Yeah.
and they're it's almost like how you said like it's not really a balancing act. It's more like well where and I look at it in a sense of like where do your values want to take you, man? Where do you want to go? And one thing that I stress a lot with the clients that I work with is I'm like you don't have to sugarcoat anything for me. You can be as real and as honest as possible. If you're like, dude, if you don't like your job, tell me you don't like your job. If you hate your job, tell me I hate my job, John. I hate what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now let's figure out where we want to go.
Yep.
You know, but I think it all starts with kind of figuring out where you are and your values, and then I think your experience kind of talks a lot, Naomi, into like how it led you to there. And do you
Mhm.
have any particular advice on people when dealing with resiliency? Like, how did you get through those tough moments?
Yeah, like you said, it's knowing what you value, knowing where you're headed. Like I knew there was an end point on each of these things. Like, I mean, my job's my job. Like I have to keep doing that. But I knew I was almost at
Yeah.
the end of my doctorate. It was almost the end of my dissertation. So I knew that like there was a light at the end of the tunnel coming. I knew we had figured out what was wrong. So I knew what surgeries were coming. So like I had checkpoints along the way that I knew I could get to. And then
Mhm.
it's really being present now and
Oh,
not
okay.
I think we get very overwhelmed, and I help clients with this. We get very overwhelmed in the everything I have to do, the never ending to-do list. I've got to do this, I
Yeah.
got to do this, we have to be here, we have to go there, we like all these things. We get so overwhelmed. And actually I'm talking about it tonight on a webinar of like how do you get out of
Okay.
the stuck and how do you get out of the overwhelm? And it's what are the 3 things that have to get done today? What are the top 3 things for today? If
Mhm.
nothing else gets done, I get those 3 things done and anything else is
Yep.
bonus. So it's really focusing in on what has to be done now, what has to be accomplished now, rather than I have all of this that has to be done, but it doesn't all have to be done today. So it's
Yeah.
what is important for today. And it's your mindset and the stories that you're telling yourself. Because when we're stuck in
Mm.
overwhelm
Yeah.
and in these resiliency phases, we can get very much stuck in the negative self-talk. Anytime we can get stuck in
Yes.
negative self-talk, and we start saying things to ourselves that are very derogatory, very much tearing ourselves down, and we would never talk to someone else this way. Some of it is stories that come from our childhood of things that were said to us. Some of it is things we've picked up along the way, and just this unkind way we have of being with ourselves. And so becoming conscious of what you're saying to yourself, because whatever we repeatedly do, we get very good at, whether it's good or bad.
Oh, yeah.
So if we're repeatedly getting stressed,
Total.
if we're repeatedly getting overwhelmed, I'm so stressed, I'm so stressed, I'm so stressed. Well, your brain hears that, and your unconscious
Yeah.
brain looks for proof.
I love, I'm gonna plug that one more time.
Yeah.
Whatever we repeatedly do, we become good at.
Mhm.
Like, that is so strong of a statement right there. Like that. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. That just stood out to me a lot right now.
Yeah, it's the power of habit. And that's
Yeah.
why bad habits are so hard to break, because they
Yes.
become routine, they become pattern, and your brain likes the ease of pattern and routine. It's easier.
Yes.
But yeah, like whatever we do repeatedly, we get really good at. And whatever we say, our brain looks for proof. So it's like, I hear this from so many people. I'm just not any good at math. I'm no good with numbers.
Mm.
Well,
Mm.
someone told them that somewhere along the way, and they kept repeating it. And your brain was like, okay, you're no good at numbers. So let's find proof that you're no good at numbers. Look at that mistake you made right there. You're no good at numbers. Oh,
Yeah.
look, you just gave the wrong change to that person. Yeah, you're no good with numbers. Oh, you got a whatever on your SAT. Yeah, you're no good at math. And so your brain just looks for confirmation of those things. Whereas
Mm.
if we start to change those conversations of, instead of I'm overwhelmed, or I'm so busy, or I have too much to do, and just making small shifts to I have a lot to do. One of the shifts
Yes.
that I've been making is when I have a busy day, not calling it a busy day, because there's a connotation to a busy
Mm.
day.
Yes.
I've started calling it a full day. I have a very full day. I have a very
Nice.
full
I
schedule.
love that. Yeah.
There's a different feel, and my brain looks at it differently when I say full versus busy. And it may seem like such a small change, but those small changes are powerful.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, even with like body positivity, like how you look at yourself in the mirror and the way we tear ourselves apart, especially women. It's really hard to go from tearing yourself apart to I love my body and I love all of my body. So I'm like,
Yeah.
no, start with one thing that you can accept
Yes.
about your
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
Like, I
Definitely.
accept that I have a body, and you make a small shift. And as you do that, you can start to find things that you actually like about yourself. And so it's not a like instant change. I help clients make
Yeah.
small changes, small
Yes.
shifts from I'm so overwhelmed and stressed to, okay, I need to get 3 things done today. What are my top 3 priorities today?
Yes.
And I'm going to do those, and I will be successful at those things. So it's small shifts, it's small mindset shifts. Let me get the words out right.
Yeah.
I'm so busy to I have a full schedule. Because when you have a full schedule, you then can also say, when someone asks of you to do something, I'm sorry, I'm not able to do that. My schedule is full.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Even I like to think about mine as productive,
Mhm.
right? Like my schedule, like, hey, got a productive day today. Just kind of go hash it out. And then some days I like to think about my days as like professionally or personally,
Mhm.
right? Developing, right? And it's my motto for my business. It's persistence, not perfection.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, just that 1%, that 2% better, that 0.0001%
Mhm.
better. Just do something, right? And that's a big thing that I work with my clients on. It's just there's a lot, like you said, there's that whole mental to-do list that you got going on. And I'm like, I just need to just take action. Just one, just go one thing, right? But we're gonna lead with some intention. We're gonna be strategic about this, right? You're not gonna do something that you're like, if you're telling me you hate your job, well, I'm not gonna tell you to keep working on your job. And this is one of my favorite one of my favorite times working with my clients is it's opportunity weeks and attitude weeks. Because opportunity weeks is just perspective, right? It's like, I don't have enough time. Okay, go on your phone real quick and go to the usage. And then I just bring out to them, oh, so you had 2 hours already that you spent today scrolling on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or whatever. So you're telling me you don't have time. But this is where I'm shifting your perspective. Like, you have time, understand you're wasting it.
Yeah.
So let's be real. And this is where I tell people, like, my program is not for everybody, because I will push you. I will push you. And if you feel like you need a change, I'm the man for you. I got you. Let's do this, right? Because I am going to push you outside your comfort zones. I'm going to give it to you real, right? Probably raw and honest and open, very much so, right? But I'm going to show you that different perspective, in the sense of, you're telling me you don't have a lot of time to do that, but you're doing this, right? Or else the other one is, well, I don't have money. How do I do that? I'm like, okay, what do you want to learn? Oh, well, I want to make more money for this job or something like that. Okay, what would get you that promotion? What are the skills? Have you even downloaded the job description and the summary of that job that you want?
Yeah.
Or you just want it? Like, oh, well, I haven't. So you don't even know what you really need to get that job yet.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why don't we start there? Go to your company's website that you already have, because you already work there. Go there and download that job description summary. What are the bare minimum qualifications? Do you meet that? Right? Have you scheduled a meeting with your manager to talk about, like, hey, this is my ambition. This is where I want to go. What advice do you have for me? Right? And it's those little things with opportunities. It doesn't have to be big. I tell people all the time, like, one of the things I love using a lot, Udemy. Like, you can find courses for anything on Udemy. That's how I learned how to work Excel.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they had like this intro to like intermediate Excel course that I bought on there for like $49. And it was like 200 hours of like some guy just walking you through Excel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, there's a way out there. And then it goes back to even the attitude, right? It's having that mentality to understand like where you're trying to go. And then I work with my clients on stopping them in their tracks when they are having those negative attitudes. Right. And I have so they have a book, they have the workbook with them, and they're walking around. I'm like, the minute you start feeling some kind of rise of emotion, anger, frustration, I'm like, and they're like, oh, okay, a negative emotion. I said emotion, not negative. I'm like, if you have happiness, why wouldn't you catalog happiness so you can try duplicating that again?
Yep.
Right. So it's those little like nuances that make just the difference, you know?
I do.
That's how I feel. And oh, man, but I'm glad you're bringing that up, especially with the mindfulness of just working with it. And then like the resiliency portion, it goes, I feel you can do anything if you have the right team with you.
Absolutely. And there's two things you said that I absolutely love. It's that 1% change. And I think it's Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect. Talking about those little tiny changes. You make one little tiny change now, and it can make a huge difference in the future. And you just talk about like health and fitness, taking care of myself now in my 40s is going to pay huge dividends as I go into my 50s and 60s. And I'm going to look very different and behave very differently from my peers who are just eating the typical American diet and not working out. By just making little changes. And then the other thing that you said was about perfection. Was it persistence over perfection that you said?
It's persistence, not perfection.
Yeah, I love that. And I talk about perfection because it's one of those negative mindsets. I say perfection is the enemy of completion. Done is better than perfect. And what if instead of perfection, we shot for excellence? Excellence is incredible, right? But it allows us to be human. whereas
Yes.
perfection doesn't.
Yeah, and that's one thing. I mean, and like I said, my program, I learned this. It was my personal development program, and I learned that. There were so many times where I was just like a year later thinking about like, oh man, well, I never got to doing that because I never finished the plan on how to make sure it was perfect. And here I am sitting here, still the same. Nothing got done, and now so I kind of address it now of like, dude, just do something, just take some kind of action, right? And it was it's very, it's not simple to do to get out of that mindset of, the worst things of people can always think about the fear of, oh, I don't want to look stupid, I don't want to look foolish, I don't want to fail. I'm like, dude, you gotta fail if you want to succeed. You gotta fail, and you gotta fail probably multiple times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's so many instances I had where I didn't say the right thing, I didn't ask the right question, my plan failed at work, and people were like, oh, look, your plan failed. I'm like, well, I mean, at least I spoke, man,
Yeah.
and said something. I had an interesting experience at one of my jobs where we were all on like a conference call, and they were talking about a part expiring, right? And I didn't know this because it was glass. So I was like, glass expires. Okay. I was like, I never knew that, right? And I remember asking, there was only me and one of my colleagues. He was right next to me, and I was like, hey, do you know why glass expires? And he's like, no. And everybody's on mute. There was probably like 30 people on that call. And I was like, okay. And this is where working with people on finding your strength, because my strength is naturally curiosity. So I just kind of unmuted myself. I'm like, hey, I'm like, quick question. I'm like, how does glass expire? I don't understand. And they're like, oh, great question. Hey, is this? It's actually not the glass. It's actually the glue that holds the glass on.
Oh, okay.
Right. So that's why they considered it expired. So they're like, if it's outside of that date, they just need to take the glass back, put new glue on, and it's good to go.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And then everybody starts going on there. Oh yeah, great question. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I'm thinking in my head, like, why didn't y'all ask? Like, we were sitting here for a while and nobody asked this question. And that's where I feel like it gets people. It's that fear of just, they don't want to look foolish. They don't want to look dumb. They don't want to say the wrong thing. Like, they don't want to make it look like they don't know, kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, when you let go of that, you can do a lot.
Oh yeah. Like if you want to succeed faster, just fail faster, because you're going to learn all the lessons.
I love it. Just fail faster.
And I used to tell my teachers, I was like, I want you to try things. I want you to attempt something different. And I don't care if you fail. I want you to fail forward and fail fast.
Yes.
Like
love it.
Fail in a forward direction, not because you didn't take action. Fail because you tried something and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Fail because you went big and it didn't work.
Yeah. And I love it. There's a book I'm reading right now, Chasing Lions. And I love one of the things on there that he says. He's like, you're because I know you're a spiritual person as well, right? And so am I. And one of the things he says on there, he's like, your goal, if your goal doesn't scare you, it's not big enough, right? Yeah. But he also puts on there, he's like, you should have a goal that is destined to fail without divine intervention. And I was just like,
yeah.
Like, I was like, it took my breath away. I had to put the book down when I read that. I was like, whoa. Like, I never thought of something like, have a goal so big that you can't get it done. God's going to have to help you.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I was like, I for real, I had to put the book down. I was like, let me walk away. I need to think about that for a little bit. Like, is that my goal? And then at first I was like, oh, I want to help leaders. And then after reading that, like, that's where it got me to, I want to redefine what leadership development means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just want to redefine it. I want to get it out of people's heads. And it's interesting. I just did a poll on LinkedIn on my account, and I asked people, I'm like, what does leadership development mean to you? Right? Mm-hmm. Which one do you agree with? And I put two descriptions that I found on Google on there. And then I put a little poll like, hey, is it career development? Is it personal development? Is it this? And it's all over the place. Right. And to me, it's just, I want to get away from that career focused, like it's just career focused, it's just professional development focused kind of thing like that. And it's funny because when I did that post, I really wanted to put all the definitions I found. I found over like 10 definitions,
Yep.
the top rated ones, and all of them, every one of those definitions included something for an organization, for a work environment, for the employee, for like everything just mentioned work. And I'm like, none of this mentions a leader at outside of a work environment. And that's where I want to shift people's perspectives to back, like, this is what a leader is. And I always think about something so essential of, well, think about your necessities as a human being, right? As a living human being. I'm like, you need some shelter, you need some food, your family, right?
Right.
Like it's nothing major, right? We have this in our heads of like, oh, we need to climb the corporate ladder kind of thing and get up there. And then you've probably heard the people, like heard the stories and stuff. And then on some of them, like I've talked to people that have even like told me, like you just mentioned, that you get up there and then you realize it's not where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like somewhere along the path, it's because we just keep going, and it's like we're focusing professional, and this kept staying right here, and we never bring this up to meet up par with our professional skills. And I've had clients before that have told me like, oh yeah, I'm working and doing all this, and I was like, well, what's your passion? What are you passionate about? Painting. Oh, okay. When's the last time you painted? Oh,
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so why aren't you painting? Like, if you love it and you're ambitious about it, like start painting. And oh, I haven't done it in so long. That's fine, man. Like, let's do this. It's all about action. I'm big on action with my program. I'm like, it's all about action. Go and find a little easel. Just pick an easel that you want to put a canvas on, and then we'll worry about the canvas later.
Yep.
But just like you said, point or 0.0001% change is still a change as long as you know where you're going.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's that committed action. And like, I'm in a transformational leadership program right now. I actually graduate May 17th. And like you said, like, people think transformational leadership is about becoming a leader in your business, in your career, what you can do as a manager, a leader, a CEO. But this transformational leadership and what transformational leadership is supposed to be about is the transformation of you and your personal leadership throughout your entire life. So this training, like, we're not just learning to lead businesses, we're learning to lead our own lives, and how we lead ourselves affects how we lead others. So there are people in this training that range from stay-at-home moms to CEOs to retirees to 18-year-olds starting their career.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
we're all learning our personal leadership, our personal transformation, and how we show up and our ways of being, which I feel like that is so missed in so much training and so much leadership, is who are you being? We're taught to be very good doers. And I struggle with this because I'm an excellent doer. Like, you give me stuff to do and like, I get stuff done. Like, I will get it done. But my ways of being, I struggle with just being.
Yes.
And who I am being. And so that's been the area of growth for me, is learning to be, and to be in intentionality rather than all of the doing, because I look at end results, but you get your end results from your intention when you let go of mechanism.
Yeah.
When you're not concerned with how it happens, but you have the intention, then you can get to the results that you want.
Yeah.
Because then you're open to the possibility of how it can happen. And when we're so locked in on mechanism, we miss out on all of these other avenues of possibility of how it could happen. And I just think of like Thomas Edison and the light bulb. Like, he tried all of the possibilities until he found the one that worked best.
Yeah.
He was open to possibility, and he was open to failure, and failed, what was it, like 10,000 times?
Yeah, it was like,
99.
I want to say I would have stuck it out, but I don't know.
No, I know, I probably wouldn't have. But it was like his genius. He said genius is like 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. It does involve inspiration. It does involve persistence, but it involves that openness to, how is this going to happen? I have a goal that I'm trying to achieve for this training that if I don't meet my goal, I don't graduate. But when I let go of how I get to that goal, things start to open up, doors open, possibilities
Yeah.
open, and I start making progress towards that goal.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I do that. So like I had mentioned before, I'm in an opportunity season, right? And
Mhm.
it's funny because I had to tell this and like kind of coach one of my clients on this. I'm like, inaction is still action,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like, and it's sometimes needed, man.
Yeah.
Like, don't think you have to fill your day with things to do, right? Yes, I got you. You got a goal, right? And for mine, it's an 8 week, right? So I take them through an 8 week program. I'm like, you got a goal for your 8 weeks, right? That you got to hit. But I'm like, take the time to understand. And just like you said, the inner leader in you, the
Yeah.
person in you, right? This is not, and I had to kind of bring them back to like, who's taking this program? Is it your wife? Is it your kids? Your boss at work? It's you, man. You took this program for a reason. You wanted to take some action towards some goals, but you wanted to look inside of yourself. Like,
Mhm.
how is me doing? That's it's essentially what you're asking, right? And this is what we're building. And I'm like, it's okay. And it was like, well, there were so many things I was thinking about and everything. And I'm like, just put on there, maybe meditate, man. Have you ever tried meditation?
Mhm.
Right? I'm like, it's an opportunity to just explore, man. And that's one of the questions I ask clients that I work with. I'm like, how much ability do you have to explore life? Do
Mhm.
you have that ability? Are you exploring life?
Mhm.
If they're like, no, I don't have time, I'm always at work and everything. Okay, let's work on some balance, right? They're like, oh well, sometimes it's you don't know what you don't know. And this is why I'm a big proponent of working with people in groups, talking to different people, hearing their different perspective. This is the whole reason why I started this podcast, was to get other people's perspectives on their journeys,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like, you look at this channel and you'll see interviews from different people in different industries and different genres, helping people in different ways. So I'm like, that's the whole purpose. I'm like, sit down, hear Naomi's story, then go hear somebody else's story that's on my channel, then hear another person's, and then figure it out as you're going. But I love that you mentioned that. It's sometimes you just got to sit back, and those are the crazy times for me because I'm a very like I can be a very action centric person as well, and I'm like, no, I gotta do it, and I know that stems from me trying to hold control over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so funny because I was feeling like that, and I wake up, morning prayer, and I saw that message today. It was just like, let go, just let
Yeah.
it go. It's okay. It's
Mhm.
okay. It's gonna be okay. I'm like, woo! Had to take a breather this morning.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. But no, hey Naomi, I know we're almost out of time, but definitely wanted to ask you this question and share with our readers anything that you would recommend. If you got one like favorite quote that you have, a favorite book, or a favorite podcast that you would recommend that they listen to, other than this one, of course.
That's a tough question. I think I'm gonna give you something in all areas. So,
Ooh,
favorite quote. Can I quote myself?
yeah, yeah, definitely. Why not plug yourself? There you go.
Uh, this relates to your stress management. The biggest breakthrough you will ever have is when you realize how much power and control you have over your mind and your stress.
Nice.
That's your biggest breakthrough.
Very true.
Because so often we give our power away and don't realize how much we have. So that's kind of I share that frequently. Um,
Yeah, love
favorite
it.
book? Oh my goodness, I love books. I read a lot
Oh,
in
okay,
personal
yeah.
development. I'll go with one. This one it's The Habit Mechanic by Dr. John Finn. And I use a lot of his principles in my coaching and speaking. And he is like the habit mechanic, like genius. This is his PhD
Wow.
work. He's been in it for 20 years. So he really takes you through how to work with your brain to create the habits that you want. And his book,
Okay.
like, book is huge. However, it's written almost like a workbook so that as
Oh,
you're
okay.
reading, you're doing the activities, you're answering questions in the book. He has graphics in it and everything. So it's like you're like, oh my goodness, this is a huge book. It'll take me forever to read. It only takes you forever to read because you're doing the stuff as you go.
You're working through it. Okay. Yeah.
So I absolutely love his book. He's fantastic. And then I also love podcasts. So I have to think about what I love. Actually, I'm going to go to this one. So Brendan Burchard, because you mentioned something earlier about like God-sized goals.
Yes.
I love Brendan Burchard. He is a high performance coach. So I also am a partner in the company Body, and he has partnered with our company as like,
oh, nice. Okay.
I don't remember his specific title, but like chief marketing officer or something like that. He brings us business trainings, and he has 2 podcasts, one in marketing. Oh, what's his other one? I don't know. He has 2 podcasts. I listen to both of them. So I can't remember what they are, but if you just search for Brendan Burchard, he's amazing. And his Growth Day app, I absolutely love. I use his Growth Day app. He has a morning fire every morning, which is like a 10 to 30 minute audio that is about high performance and just get you in the right mind space in the morning.
Nice. Okay.
And it has an incredible journaling feature in it. So yeah, that's my quote. Habit mechanics.
I love it. Yeah.
Podcast, listen to anything by Brendan. And what brought that up was when you were talking about God-sized goals, he talks about dumb goals instead of smart goals. He's like, anybody can set a smart goal. Like smart goals are set so that you can achieve them. There's nothing inspiring about a smart goal whatsoever. He's like, I want you to develop dumb goals, which the D is for dream big. It's those big, like you can't ever do that. Like, who are you to dream that big?
Yeah.
Well, you're you. That's who you are. And you dreamt it. You can achieve it. And so he asked you to develop these dumb goals that seem huge and unattainable because that inspires you. That drives you to move forward and chase after it. So that's what brought me back to Brendan.
No, I love it. I'm definitely going to check that out too. No, I appreciate you. Usually people only add one and I'm like, cool, we got all 3. So I'll take it.
High achiever.
I know, right? I'm like, hey, dream big. There you go. Dream big, right? Yeah. Well, hey, Naomi, before we let you go, so yeah, how can people get a hold of you, or the best way to get a hold of you? And who's your client? You know, who can reach out to you and who can you help?
Absolutely. So I tend to work with driven high achievers who are stressed out, on the verge of burnout, are burnt out. And even if you don't view yourself that way, if you're the person that you're like, I am barely treading water in life and work, like the water level, I'm not like head and shoulders above the water, treading water. I'm at the point where the water's like at my nose and I'm going under, I'm sputtering, I'm choking.
Nice. Yeah.
That's who I help. I help you get your feet back on solid ground again so that you can function and be successful, love life, love your career. That's who I work with. I had a client that I've been working with, and she is in a spiral right now. And she reached out to me this morning. She's like, I'm so sorry to just like spew at you in this email. I was like, no, that's what I'm here for. Yeah. So let's work on this and let's get you back on solid ground right now. You did the right thing. So I'm like, that excites me when people come to me like that. 'Cause I'm like, all right, we got work to do. Let's do it. You can find me on social media, both Instagram and Facebook as Naomi Hall Fit Educator. And I strive to create a positive, supportive space there because social media can be so negative. So you're going to find education there. My foundations of stress management are fitness, nutrition, hydration, sleep, and mindset. So those are the type of topics that you're going to see there. You're going to see fitness, you're going to see nutrition, you're going to see mindset, you're going to see stress management. So that's what you'll find there. I won't say that I'm perfect, that I never complain, but for the most part, I keep it positive there. I'm a real person. And you do see me very real on my social media. You'll see me after my workout, sweaty, no makeup. Like this is who I am. You'll hear my dog barking. It's life. This is who I am. And that's how I show up on social media. And then the link down at the bottom, I have a free gift for you to take you from frenzied to free. It's my 5 foundations for fighting stress. So please go get that link. That will connect you to me. It will get you a few emails from me. It will get you into my email series. And again, I send out value there. I am supporting you there, providing you good content. And that free PDF gives you my 5 foundations that I just listed off. And it gives you tips in each one of those of places to start so that you can, like I said, start small because it can be very overwhelming. You're like, Naomi, how do I take care of my body and my mind and like everything else I have to do? you start small and you start with my PDF and look at, okay, I can do that one thing right now. And then through that, you have access to me through email. So Facebook and Instagram, the free link, please go grab that. I kept it very simple and straightforward and streamlined for you, because I know you're busy. I know you're overwhelmed, and I know that you need to be able to just pick out, all right, I can do that. I can eat more protein.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, no, I appreciate you being on. Definitely thank you for providing the freebie link. I think that's huge. I love the mindfulness, the approach with physical fitness too, the health, the eating and sleep. I need to work on my sleep, maybe a little bit more, and my eating. So yeah, I'm gonna go get the freebie link too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I appreciate you being on, Naomi, and reach out to Naomi if you're right here, right there. Reach out, right? If you're interested more in the Soaring Leader program, look at it like this. If you're ready for a change, if you're in the darkness, I can be that flashlight to get you out. All right. That's what I like focusing on, is people that are no longer tired or no longer making excuses, but are ready for that change. All right. So let's get to work, guys. And appreciate you, Naomi, taking the time. And I look forward to having you on the show again.
Awesome. I'd love that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You too.